As more women were working, problems of gender disparities in pay and sexual harassment at work arose in the 1960s and 70s. Thus came a wave of feminism named Second Wave Feminism. Some goals of the 60s feminists were equal pay for equal work, end to domestic violence, removal of limits on women in managerial jobs, and end to harassment. For the first time in history, any woman with a modicum of educational and economic resources could, if she wanted to, separate sex from childbirth, lifting the specter of unwanted pregnancy that had structured women's lives for thousands of years. However, during this particular movement, colored women did not receive much attention during this wave of feminism because the feminists were mainly white, middle-aged ladies that were the majority of the population at that time. However, that did not mean that the colored woman wasn't doing anything. Black women wanted to fight not just for the right to contraception and abortions, but also to stop the forced sterilization of people of color and people with disabilities, which was not a priority for the mainstream women's movement, but also a very key aspect to the movement. One of the protests during the feminist movement in the 60s and 70s were done by the New York Radical Women Association in September 1968. It was done at Atlantic City, New Jersey, at a Miss America pageant. It brought attention to the exploitation of women at that time of age. The protesters allegedly crowned a sheep Miss America and then tossed instruments of women's oppression, including high-heeled shoes, curlers, girdles, and bras, into a freedom trash can in order to emphasize the exploitation of women at that time by men and the majority of the public. In addition to radical but useful movements, there also came some law enforcement that secured rights for women. For instance, the Equal Pay Act of 1963 theoretically outlawed the gender pay gap. Although the gender pay gap is still prevalent to this day of age, that was a huge step forward for women in terms of securing their rights legally. A series of landmark Supreme Court cases through the 60s and 70s also gave married and unmarried women the rights to use birth control, and also Title IX gave women the right to educational equality. The second wave feminism worked on getting women the right to hold credit cards under their own names and to apply for mortgages. It worked to outlaw marital rape, to raise awareness about domestic violence, and to build shelters for women fleeing rape and domestic violence. It worked to name and legislate against sexual harassment in the workplace. The second wave feminism in the 60s and 70s magnificently changed the gender roles in the society. Not only did women have more power and more say in what their rights are and to fight for them, they also gained a lot more attention in the public.